So here's the agenda for this meeting today. These are the 4 points that we're going to go over. The second Advent message, which is Adventism. That's where we get our name from. It's the second Advent message. It's the preachers of the second Advent. That's in the Bible. The second Advent message is in the Bible. So we'll show you the verses. Then we're going to look at the little book. It was a book that was sealed, and then it was unsealed. It was closed up, and then they opened the book. The time of the end. This is a phrase. It's only found in the book of Daniel. The time of the end. When is that? So we'll be able to answer that question. And then the message in relation to time, which has to deal with the prophetic periods. There's prophetic periods in the books Daniel and the Revelation, and a few other books in the Bible. There's prophetic periods. So there's a message in relation to time. And all these things are tied together, and we're going to learn about these 4 things today. So the first thing that we're going to tackle is the second Advent message. Well, there was an apocalyptic sermon given by Christ on Mount Olives. Remember, the inner circle came to him, Peter, Andrew, James, and John. They want to know about the destruction of the temple. They want to know about the end of the world, about his coming. We're going to read through these verses. For as light cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. The coming of the Son of Man be is going to be like lightning coming from the east, shining unto the west. Also think of a sun rising. The sun rises from the east and shines into the west. Okay, and lightning is fast. It's light, something coming from the east, light coming from the east, fast. Next verse. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So he's coming down. He's coming from heaven. There's clouds. We're looking up, and the tribes are mourning. So the Lord is letting us know what's going on at the end of the world. This is a message, and we're to relay this to other people. Verse 37, but as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So if we're giving a message about the coming of the Lord or the second Advent, we need to study the antediluvian world. We need to study about Noah. What was Noah dealing with? What were the people like in his day? What sins were they committing as in the days of Noah? We should be seeing those same sins being committed by this generation. There's a comparison so that we know when we're close. Verse 39, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So at the second Advent, people are going to be completely oblivious to the soon coming of the Lord, or be ignoring the signs of the time. They didn't know that the flood they didn't believe that the flood was going to come until it actually showed up at their doorstep. That's how it's going to be at the second coming too. Now we can know approximately when the second coming is, because it says, watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But the Lord does give us signs that we're close. We'll know when we're near. That's why we can watch. We wouldn't need to watch if the Lord didn't give us these signs. It would be pointless, because it could be today or it could be a million years from now. But no, it can't be a million years from now. It's close. That's why he's saying watch. Therefore be also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. when you get ready for an event or some sort of occasion, you're waiting for the taxi or the train to show up. You know it's coming soon. That's why you're waiting, you're ready, you're prepared. It'd be a waste of time if you had no sense of when it was coming, right? So the Lord gives us an approximation. We can be ready. We can know it's really near. He's not going to tarry for long. Okay, some more second coming verses now in the book of Acts, which also said, "Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall also come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven." This is self-explanatory. As you saw Jesus leave and fly up into heaven, well, he's going to descend in like manner. Revelation 14:14 says this too, does it not? "And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, in his hand a sharp sickle for the harvest." We're the harvest, and we are going to be reaped by that sharp sickle. He's coming in a cloud. He's coming from above. Luke 21, it mirrors Matthew 24. "And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with great power and glory." And here are other verses for you. I can give you these verses later, but they also are similar to what we already read here in Matthew 24. Second Advent verses. So we must know approximately when the second Advent is. That shouldn't even be a question mark. It should be a period or an exclamation point. We must know approximately when the second Advent is. Notice this, Luke 19:44. Remember, when the disciples are asking Christ in Matthew 24 about the destruction of the temple, they're thinking that is the end of the world. What Christ does is he parallels the destruction of the temple, the destruction of Jerusalem, with the end of the world. It's a shadow or a type of the end of the world. So the destruction of the Jewish nation is a destruction of those at the end of the world. Notice why the ancient people were destroyed. "And shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee. And they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation." This is Christ saying this. You didn't know the time. You couldn't discern the signs of the time. You didn't know that you were being judged. And so that's just like at the first Advent, so will it be at the second Advent. Those that will be wiped out will not know the time of their visitation. The first angel's message is, "Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come." The hour, the time of his judgment is now. Mark 13:33. This verse is for us here at the end of the world. This is a verse that needs to be written on our hearts. "Watch and pray, for ye know not when the time is." In other words, it's any moment now. You need to be watching and praying. You need to be vigilant. You need to know the time of your visitation. Isaiah 21, verse 11. the burden of Duma. He called to me and sire, watchman, what of the night? Watchman, what of the night? So as a watchman on the wall, you're waiting for the morning. It's coming soon. You're watching, you're praying, you're vigilant. You're awake. You're not sleeping. Watchman, what of the night? What's the report? So we as Adventists, we are the watchmen. And the Lord, others too, will be asking us, what of the night? Do we have a message? Do we have something to tell them? Christ says, now learn a parable of the fig tree. The Lord is about to, right here, illustrate how we can understand the time of our visitation through a parable. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. Remember, he's coming in the clouds with a sickle. What happens at summer? The harvest, right? Everything grows up in the summertime, and then you have the harvest. You know that harvest is soon. How do you know? Oh, when things start to blossom in the spring, right? You're right on the eve of the harvest. You're not in dead of winter. You know that summer is nigh. So likewise, ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. So we might not know the exact day and hour right now, but we can know the time of our visitation. We can know that Christ is even at the door. We can know that day hasteneth greatly. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. So if you understand the parable of the fig tree, if you know when the branch is tender, when you know when it's starting to put forth its leaves, you can know that you're Earth's last generation. We can get into that more specifically in a later lesson. But the point being is we can know the time of the visitation. We don't have to be ignorant like the ancient church. An Adventist, true Adventist, the wise understand time and judgment. The wise know where they are in prophetic time. Now, did you know that the second Advent message was forbidden to be preached until a certain time? I'm going to prove this to you in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 1 through 8. This is so very important. The point is that there would be a time when the Advent message would go out to the world. And until then, God's people were not to preach it. Let's look at 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 1. Now we beseech you, we are pleading with you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, or concerning the second advent of the Lord, and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter as from us, as that day of Christ is at hand. Now, hold on one moment. If you know the parable of the fig tree, you know that it is at hand, that these things are even at the door. If you're giving the first angel's message, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. The Lord is near. But if you go back 2,000 years ago, when Paul is writing to the Thessalonians, he's saying it's not near. And he was right. 2,000 years would need to transpire. He's saying, don't be shaken in mind. Thessalonians, don't be troubled. Don't be anxious about this, about the day of the Lord being at hand. He says, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first. So the church is going to go into apostasy, and that man of sin be revealed. This is the Antichrist. This is the Pope, the son of perdition. So the the harlot church from Babylon. There would need to be an apostasy. There would need to be a falling away. That all would need to take place, and that would take centuries to unfold. He's like that. Paul is saying that all needs to take place first. Now he gives us an indication of who this is: who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So there's going to be an antichrist in the place of Christ, a man that's going to come. He's going to erect a beautiful sanctuary. It's going to be grandiose. He's going to be sitting in the temple. He's going to be pretending he's God, able to forgive sins. He's going to think he's God in the flesh. He's going to be blasphemous. That man needs to show up on the scenes of world history first. In Paul's day, that was hundreds of years away. Remember ye not that when I was with you, I told you these things? Paul's recognizing that this is a controversial teaching. And he's like, remember when we were in private? Remember when I was with you personally and I told you about this? This was a secret meeting, if you will. And now ye know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. You know what's holding back the papacy from coming on the scenes of world history. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Let's in case we've forgotten, what is the mystery of iniquity? The mystery of iniquity, it's holding the truth in unrighteousness. It's being a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's cloaking iniquity with a thin veil of Christianity. It's paganism baptized. It is pretending to be something that you're not. And that was already starting to work in Paul's day. There were doctrines of devils infiltrating the pure teachings of Christ. So it's already working in its day. And the full manifestation of that is that man of sin, is the son of perdition revealing himself. That's already starting to happen in his day. Now, Paul is saying, now only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. So Paul is speaking in a riddle. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. Paul's not going to tell you who this is that's withholding. In the previous verse 6, he's not telling you who's withholding, that he might be revealed in his time. There's somebody that's withholding. He told him who it was. He's, remember when I told you who that was? I told you. But in this letter that could be intercepted, in this letter that will be made public and people will talk about it, I'm going to make this person anonymous. Now, who is this person? This is actually the state. This is the Roman state. These are those who are in charge. And that's why Paul is being very careful. He doesn't want to talk bad about the government of his day. When Rome collapsed, when the Roman Empire falls, then the papacy is going to come up. That's what he's saying. And we see this, if we understand the prophecies of Daniel, I'm assuming that most people are pretty familiar with sort of the basics of the book of Daniel. If some are not, we can go over the basics another time. But this is illustrated in a dream that Nebuchadnezzar had. He saw a head of gold, which was Babylon, silver, arms. Medo-Persia came next, an inferior nation came next, gold, silver, then an inferior metal, brass, which was the Greeks came next, then iron, cold iron, hard iron, characteristic of Rome, and then Rome would fall, and then the feet would come next, and it was part iron, part clay. churchcraft and statecraft, some strong nations, some weak nations is another interpretation. And so Europe is divided up, the Roman Empire falls, and the papacy comes up at the very end. And that's why Paul's saying, Paul understands Bible prophecy. Paul understands the book of Daniel pretty well. And he is saying, let no man deceive you. This needs to happen first. Rome needs to fall first. And Paul is living in the golden age of Rome, maybe a little bit after the golden age, but he's in that time when Rome is at the height of its power. And so the collapse of the Roman Empire didn't seem likely at that time. And it would take centuries. It would take centuries before that would happen. Okay. So in sort of summing up this little section, the Advent message wouldn't be preached until a certain time. Paul's saying, don't be troubled by this message. The day of Christ was not at hand in Paul's day. Okay, continuing on. So that we've established that there is a second Advent message, and we've established that the second Advent message wouldn't be preached until a certain time in history, that the papacy would need to come onto the scenes, and after the papacy comes onto the scenes, it wouldn't be until after that the second Advent message could be given. Now we're going to see that this is further illustrated in this little book. So let's look at this little book. There's a little book in the Bible, and it was sealed, and then it would be unsealed. Daniel 12:4 is the signature verse for this. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Most of the commentators on the Bible, they interpret many shall run to and fro as people digging deeper into the Word of God, precept upon precept. They're able to navigate the Word of God, and therefore they're able to share the Word of God with others. And so there's this illumination of Bible truth. Many are going to run to and fro, and knowledge is going to increase. Now, in a secondary sense, I do believe that scientific knowledge increases as Bible truth pioneers the way. We see that with the Reformation. We were in the Dark Ages, the Reformation came, and then there's this great enlightenment of scientific ideas. But I would give the primary sense to this knowledge being the knowledge of the book of Daniel, the knowledge of the book of Revelation. Now, the words are sealed even to the time of the end. So we need to know when the time of the end is, and we will by the end of the lesson. The words of this book would be sealed to the time of the end. I hope a question is coming up in your mind, and that is, well, what's in this book? Now, Daniel and Revelation are one. One is a prophecy, the other a revelation. So Daniel's counterpart is in the writings of John. Now, John says this, and I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud. Clouds represent, if we were to proof text this out, we would see that angel ministration is represented by clouds. So this mighty one has angels round about him. He has glory. Clouds are glory round about him. And a rainbow was upon his head. Think of the story of Noah. This is This angel is a messenger of a covenant of peace, and his face was as it were the sun. Think about the book of Malachi, the son of righteousness with healing in his wings. This is a healer. This is right. This man is righteousness. Righteousness comes from the face of Jesus, Paul says, and his feet as pillars of fire. And so this is an extraordinary scene. This is none less than the personage of Christ. And he had in his hand a little book open. Oh, so now the book is open. In Daniel, it was sealed, but in Revelation, it's going to be open. And he set his right foot upon the sea and his left foot on the earth. This is world domination, for a lack of a better word. Complete, full dominion is his. And the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hand to heaven. This is a solemn oath, and swear by him that liveth forever and ever. He's swearing to the Father. So this is also another example of why this must be Christ. He's lifting up his hand to heaven. He is swearing a solemn oath to the Father, who created heaven and the things that therein are, and the earth and the things that therein are, and the sea and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer. Now, if we were going to go a little bit more in depth, we can't cover everything today, but if you were simply just to read the rest of this chapter, you are going to see John take this little book, eat this little book. It's sweet in his mouth like honey because he loves the soon appearing of the Lord, but then it's bitter in his stomach because there's a disappointment. And then the angel tells him to go and prophesy again to many nations, kindreds, tongue, and people. This gospel shall be preached to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people, and then shall the end come. There was a group of people that would do that. They would love the soon appearing of their Lord. Then they would be disappointed. It would be bitter in their stomach. And then they would have to go and do it one more time. So I think we all know what that is. You can be a Berean and read the chapter and see that it says exactly what I just said it says. But that's important for us because what it tells us is that this time no longer is not talking about the end of world history or the end of probationary time, but at the end of prophetic time. So no more time, no longer. The little book is going to tell us that there's no prophetic time is ending. The prophetic periods are coming to an end. So we have accomplished the second, there's a second Advent message, that it would be given at a certain time, that this little book is the preaching of time, of definite time. He opens the book up. He has it open in his hand. He gives us the interpretation of the book. He says that there's going to be no more prophetic time, or in other words, that the prophetic periods are coming to an end. So there's a message in relation to time. There's prophetic periods in the Bible, and I'm sure you want to know more about that. So let's look at that. Now, this is from 7 BC. That's a Bible commentary. This is Ellen White's Bible commentary, 971. This was put together. Quote, after these 7 thunders uttered their voices. We didn't read about that, but that's also from Revelation chapter 10. That's a whole Bible study in and of itself. We're going to just gloss over that for today. After these 7 thunders uttered their voices, the injunction comes to John as to Daniel in regard to the little book. Seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered. These relate to future events which will be disclosed in their order. Daniel shall stand in his lot at the end of the days. Daniel's going to give his testimony. John sees the little book unsealed. Then Daniel's prophecy have their proper place in the first, second, and third angels' messages to be given to the world. The unsealing of the little book was the message in relation to time. The unsealing of the little book was the message in relation to time. Remember, we just read, he swore by heaven that time should be no longer. The unsealing of the little book was the message in relation to time. So a message based on time would be sealed up until the time of the end. Once we reach this period called the time of the end, then people would start to be preaching about prophetic periods. That's what the Bible is prophesying about. Let's dig a little deeper. Let's get a clearer picture. Daniel 12, 6 and 7. Now, we just read 12, 7. No, excuse me, we have not. We have not. Pardon me. Let's read Daniel 12, 6 and 7. I got tripped up there because 12, 7 and Revelation chapter 10, verses 5 and 6 are almost identical. Daniel and Revelation, it's almost identical. But one is talking about the sealing of the book. The other is talking about the unveiling of the book. We'll see that. And one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? How long till the end of the world? How long till the end of these prophecies? How long till the rock smashes the image? How long until how long is this vision of these four beasts, the lion, the bear, the little horn coming up, or the ram and the goat in chapter 8 of Daniel? How long are these things? Gabriel is asking Christ. Christ is the man clothed in linen. He's the priest. He's in linen. And one angel is saying to Christ that this is Gabriel, the very special angel. How long shall it be? How long? Now notice this. And I heard a man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left unto heaven. So now in Revelation 10, it seems like he only has one hand up. And this one, he has two hands up, and he's swearing by him that liveth forever. Again, he's swearing to the Father that it shall be for a times and a half. That's a prophetic period. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. So at the end of the scattering time, and at times and a half, after these prophetic periods terminate, there's going to be time no longer, and the second coming is nigh. These things are going to be finished. Now, 4 chapters earlier, a very similar question is asked. The same question, just phrased a bit differently. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint. I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake. So he hears the one in linen speaking. He hears Christ. And he hears one saint, this is Gabriel, asking Christ, how long shall be the vision? How long till the end of these wonders, in other words? How long is this vision? The visions of Daniel concerning the daily sacrifice was a supplied word. It was one of the few instances where it's not a great translation. King James translators did a fabulous job, but there's just a few spots. It's a supplied word. It's in italics. A better interpretation would be the daily or continual abomination, the continual persecuting power. That's what the vision is about. How long shall be the vision concerning the daily or the continual persecution and the transgression of desolation? Remember, there's two. Only he who letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. So the transgression of desolation, this is dealing with the papal persecution power. The first, the daily Abomination is dealing with the pagan persecuting powers. And that's what the vision is about. If you look at 2, if you look at 7, if you look at 8, that's what the whole vision is about. It's about pagan kingdoms, and then it's about the papal kingdom. So you can just remove the supplied word. You can read Early Writings, page 74, which tells you to remove that supplied word. Shall be the vision concerning the daily and the transgression of desolation. They're both to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot. So the daily is going to trod down the sanctuary. It's also going to trod down the people of God. This is the scattering time. This is them going into captivity. And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. So it's going to take 20. This is another prophetic period. This is another message this is the message in relation to time. It's going to take 2,300 years before the host is no longer being trodden underfoot, before the sanctuary or true religion comes back into play. In the ancient world, true religion was represented by the sanctuary and the sacrificial system. In the New Testament, we look by faith to a sanctuary in heaven. So here are all the prophetic periods. Here are all the prophetic periods that the Adventists or those under the original faith preached. And you'll notice that they harmoniously terminate on 2 particular dates. They preached that the 6,000th year of world history ended in 1844. This prophetic period was really only mentioned a few times, but Miller had attached a 7 prophetic years or a 25-20 to the northern tribes. And so when Hosea, when the king becomes a tributary to the Assyrians or Babylonians, when their kingdom is no longer free and is paying taxes, when they start to go into captivity, is in 723. With the southern kingdom, now this one was preached. This second one dealing with the southern kingdoms was preached. What's the word that I'm looking for? Everywhere, and it was considered the first pillar according to the Second Advent Manual by Apollos Hale. It's on the 1843 chart. It was considered vital to the system, and that's from 677 to 1844. There was also a Jubilee cycle, the 2,300 days, which was the main pillar. There was a period called the 2,000 years of Hosea, 1842, the 1335, the 1290, the 1260. Now we see 1798. There was a 666 period to 508. 508 comes up. That's where we date the 1290 and the 1335. Miller would set that prophetic period up with a 666 period. The 490. This is the 70-week prophecy that takes us down to the anointing of the Messiah. And you probably have never heard of this, but there is a 7th month period or a 210-year period in Ezekiel 39, and I believe that's being dated from the Spanish Armada. The Protestants defeated the Catholics there, and then in 1798, General Berthier walks into Rome and takes the Pope captive. Miller believed that Gog represented the papacy. Gog represented the enemies of God, so the Babylonians, the Medo-Persians, and all the way down to the papacy. And so for 210 years, the people of God are going to be burying the bones of Gog. And so when do the Protestants, or when do the people of God start to get the upper hand? Well, around this time, 588. Probably never heard of that period. But these are all the ones that I know about that they used to preach, all the prophetic periods. And these are found in the Bible. There is a 1290, a 1260, a 490. There is a Jubilee cycle, 2300 days, 7 times or 7 years, found in Leviticus 26 or Ezekiel 39. So the message in relation to time. This is how it was preached by the original Adventists. Okay, now the time of the end. Now this is very important. These are all the verses dealing with the time of the end. Notice that they're all in the book of Daniel. I put them in order. Let's start in verse 17. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. And he said unto me, understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. Hey, that's just like what we read earlier in Daniel 12:4. Let's jump down just a couple verses on the screen. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even till the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. And knowledge shall be increased. So the book is going to be sealed until the time of the end. The vision is going to be sealed until the time of the end. For at the time of the end, then shall be the vision. Then you'll understand the vision. Understand the vision, son of man, at the time of the end. Do you see that's what it's saying? Do you see that 12:4 and 8:17 are saying the same thing? That the visions of Daniel will be understood at the time of the end? So then we definitely want to know when the time of the end is. Now, we already established that the little book is the message in relation to time. So at the time of the end, people would start to preach this message based on time, based on the soon coming of the Lord. Okay, verse 35. And some of them of understanding shall fall, to try them, and to purge, and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is yet for a time appointed. Now, I'm just going to do a spoiler here. I'm going to tell you what it is before I prove to you what it is from the Bible. If we go back a few slides, we're going to see 1798 multiple times. And the Millerites, that's what they used to do. They wouldn't just bring one prophetic period of 2,300 days to try to make their point. They would make their point over and over again. They would give a weight of evidence. And that's why their message was so much more powerful. That's why the Holy Spirit could really bless what they were doing, because they were giving, they were better students of the Bible, and they were giving a weight of evidence. They were giving lots of proofs. And that really helped them. And so that they would do that with 1798. They would say, look, this keeps showing up in the Bible. This is important. Now, what I'm going to submit to you, that this time of the end begins in 1798, or we enter into the time of the end in 1798. So I'll do my best to prove that to you. One evidence already we see from verse 35. We'll look at this a little bit closer in a minute here. But those of understanding, this must be the saints. The saints are the ones that have understanding. They're going to be purged. They're going to be made white. Purging comes through trial. Being made white, being made righteous comes through hardship. So they're going to be going through a difficult time up until the time of the end. Remember, they're going to be scattered. Remember, we were reading that not too long ago. How long till the end of these wonders? For a time, times and a half, and when I shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people. How long is the vision of the daily abomination and the transgression of desolation to tread both the sanctuary and the people of God underfoot? For 2,300 days. The people are going to be, they're not going to be a unified body. They're going to be scattered about, smitten and torn for a times and a half. It's a time appointed. It's a time appointed. That's why you see 1798 so many times. It's a time appointed. God is good to give an abundance of evidence. So we need to figure out, well, when does the persecution end? Okay, that's one thing that we need to figure out. Another thing we need to figure out, and at the time of the end shall the king of the south, the kingdom of the south is Egypt. Sorry, we just don't have enough time to do a study on Daniel 11 and the breakup of Alexander's empire being divided to the four winds, north, west, east, and south. But this was the kingdom of Ptolemy, which becomes modern day Egypt. At the time of the end, let's give me the benefit of the doubt, and we're going to say this is 1798. Shall Egypt come and push at him? The previous verses are dealing with Napoleon. So in 1798, we should see a war between Egypt and France, and the king of the north, which is modern day Turkey or the Ottoman Empire at this time, is going to come against him, Napoleon, with whirlwinds and chariots and horsemen and ships, and he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. There was a triangular war at this time. Again, you're going to have to be Bereans on this one. We just don't have the time to do a verse by verse study, but this is pioneer understanding, if that helps give you some confidence in what I'm saying is true. But in 1798, there should be a triangular war. Chapter 12, verse 4, but thou, O Daniel, shut up the books and seal the book even to the time of the end. We looked at that. And he said, go thy way, Daniel. In other words, Daniel, like Paul says in Thessalonians, don't be troubled in mind by this. Go thy way, Daniel. Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. Notice this. Immediately after the tribulation of those days. Now, this is talking about the Dark Ages. This is talking about the tribulation of the 1260. I imagine some of you are already believing that immediately after the tribulation of those days. So after the persecution of 1260 years, after they have fallen, after fallen is to die, fallen is to be persecuted. After they've been persecuted, the saints, I'm reading verse 35, the second verse, and to purge and to make them white. After they've gone through this, after the tribulation of those days, the sun is going to be darkened. The moon shall not give her light. The dark day was in 1780. The moon not giving her light was at that time too. The stars falling was November 13th, 1833, the most probably impressive celestial event in world history. So the generation that saw these things, that had passed through the end of the tribulation, who had saw these signs, what does it say about them? And the powers of heaven shall be shaken. This actually has not been fulfilled yet. Everything up until this point has been fulfilled, but the powers of heaven is you can read in Revelation 6. The moon and the stars and the heavens are going to be rolled back like a scroll. The powers of heaven are those powers that rule heaven, the sun, moon, and stars. They're going to be actually shaken out of their place just prior to the second coming at the seventh vial or seventh plague. And then shall appear the signs of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of earth mourn. So after these signs have been fulfilled, the Son of Man is going to come. So light started to pour in on the prophetic periods. The tribulation was over. These signs of the times had been fulfilled. And the old Adventists understood that they were under obligation now to preach this message. Because it says, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. And then shall the end come. First angel's message. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice. So what is this gospel of the kingdom that will be preached for a witness? Oh, here it is. Saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. A message in relation to time. We know the hour. They were tracing down the prophetic periods to the time of the judgment. And worship him that made heaven and earth and sea and the fountains of water. So the first angel's message is the judgment hour message, a message in relation to time. It's based on the prophetic periods, Great Controversy 457. And the preaching of definite time for the judgment in the giving of the first message was ordered by God. The computation of the prophetic periods on which the message was based. The preaching of definite time for the judgment in giving of the first message. This first message was based on prophetic periods. Placing the close of the 2300 days in the autumn of 1844 stands without impeachment. 2300 days was the central pillar, or the strongest, easiest of the prophetic periods to preach. So it is it's at the center of the first angel's message. Prophetic periods on which that message was based. So let's recap. We set out an agenda for today, and that was to establish that there is a second Advent message in the Bible. And where did we learn that from? We learned that from Matthew 24 most heavily, but we saw in Acts, we saw in Luke, that the Lord gives us some signs or a state of affairs at the end of the world that would indicate when he's about to show up. So he compares the days of Noah, the flood, things like that. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be. We see that he's going to come in clouds. There's going to be a sickle in his hand. So there is an Advent message. We also established that the papacy would need to show up. That the papacy would need to show up before the second Advent message would be given. We established that the message would be sealed until the time of the end. And that at a certain point it would be unsealed. And that it would go to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people. There would be a bitter disappointment. It would be sweet in the mouth like honey, and but bitter in the stomach. They would love the soon coming of the Lord, but then they would be disappointed, and then they would have to go and prophesy again. That's our situation now, living on this side of 1844. And we also established when the time of the end is, and we are going to just drive that point completely home now. Okay, so let's look. How do you prove when the time of the end is? You do that. You have to be able to trace down Daniel chapter 11. Okay, we are going to jump all the way down to verse 30. Now, I have this PowerPoint slide here that goes through the verses of Daniel chapter 11. Now, this is like to get through all 45 verses in depth takes it's a few lessons to do that. But it starts off with Darius the Mede. This is the Persians. And then it goes into Cyrus. Gabriel comes and tells Daniel that there's going to be these 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th is going to be far richer than they all. That's Xerxes. That's the husband of I can't believe I'm blanking. It will come back to me before the end of this presentation, but disregard that for now. Xerxes is going to be far richer than they all. And then Greece is going to come onto the scene. He's going to Xerxes is going to stir up the realm of Greece. It's Cambyses, Smerdis, Darius. This is the one that issued the second decree of Jerusalem to rebuild in Ezra chapter 6. Then it's Xerxes. Then a mighty king, Alexander, is going to stand up. He's going to do according to his will. He's going to rule. And you can also read about this, about the great horn that's broken. And 4 notable ones are 4 new powers come up according to the 4 winds of heaven, north, east, west, and south. This is where we get king of the north, king of the south from. And here in Daniel chapter 11, his kingdom shall be broken according to the 4 winds. And so then it's this battle between Ptolemy and Seleucus. Seleucus ends up taking over the northern kingdom. And it's the chapter 11 is back and forth, king of the north, king of the south, king of the north, king of the south. These various kings like Antiochus and Ptolemy, and they're doing these various things. And then when you get to verse 16, Rome comes onto the scene. And you learn about Cleopatra, you learn about Julius Caesar, you learn about Augustus Caesar and Tiberius, who is wicked. Jesus was crucified during Tiberius's reign. He's a vile person. History and prophecy agree, as Augustus says, your son is too vile to wear the purple of Rome. He'll never be king, but he ends up becoming the emperor. Then Mark Antony, this is the story of Cleopatra. And you trace down all the way through Roman history. And the Visigoths or the Vandals come onto the scene. And this now it's starting to deal with the breakup of the Roman Empire, the siege of Jerusalem. And by the time you get down to verse 30, here's the Vandals again, the ships of Chittim, that's Carthage, and Tunisia in modern times. They end up sacking Rome. There was a border issue like there is today. History repeats, and there was a flood of immigrants that were coming into Rome and looting and pillaging, and Rome ends up collapsing. And when you get to verse 30 through 35, you're in a post-Roman era. You're in the Dark Ages now. You're in into papal supremacy and ecclesiastical power. So by the time you get to verse 31, you start to transition. Now, if you compare Daniel 8:10 through 12 with Daniel 11:30 through 31, again, just to remind us, we need to do this in order to figure out when the time of the end is. I just basically condensed verses 1 through 30 just in a matter of about 5 minutes, just to show you by the time we get to verse 31, we're in 5th, 6th century AD. Okay? So we needed to span about 1,000 years of history really quick. Okay, so now we're moving into the times of the papacy, the times of the Dark Ages. And this is speaking of Rome, and it waxed great even to the host of heaven. And by him, the daily, remember we were talking about, the better word is the daily abomination was taken away. The place of his sanctuary was cast down. This is dealing with this is dealing with the this is dealing with Rome. This is dealing with the Pantheon, or is it the Parthenon? Pardon me for not having a good enough memory right at this moment to deal with that. But eventually, pagan religion was giving way, and a host was given him against this pagan abomination by reason of his transgression. So this could mean two things. This could mean, as you know, when a nation acts unrighteously, God takes that nation away. Babylon acted unrighteously, persecuted the people of God, worshiped false gods, and the Median Persians came onto those scenes of world history. Same story with the Greeks, same story with the Romans. So by reason of transgression, because he transgressed, Rome fell because of its transgressions, in other words. Or there might be another interpretation that's also seems quite valid, and that is by reason of transgression, or as we learned earlier, the mystery of iniquity is working. The papacy is paganism baptized, and paganism was taken away through fake conversions. Catholics started to use politics and use their religion in order to get pagan converts and get them to join ranks with them. We see this in Daniel 30 through 31. They're going to have indignation against the Holy Covenant and have intelligence with them that forsake the Holy Covenant, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength. This is dealing with the old religion, the pagan religion, and arms or armies or swords, if you will, shall stand on his part, and shall take away the daily, and they shall give place to the abomination that maketh desolate, or the transgression of desolation, or the papacy. So arms are going to stand on the part of the papacy. How did they get these arms? Well, by reason of transgression. Clovis was baptized, made a Christian. He really wasn't a Christian. It was just a nominal conversion. And so now you have these pagans masquerading as Christians, and they go through and they actually start to persecute their former pagan brethren. And so paganism is taken out of the way. Verse 32, and such as do wickedly against the covenant. Look at this wickedness. Look at this persecution. These are the people of God being slain by papal marauders, by papal hired merchants and hired arms, and such as do wickedly against the covenant. Mercenaries was the word I was looking for. And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt by flatteries. But the people that do know their God, this would be those like the Waldensians, the Albigenses, the Huguenots, the Protestants, shall be strong and do exploits. So there's this persecution that's happening. Uriah Smith says this about this: those that forsake the covenant and the holy scriptures and think more of the decrees of popes and the decisions of councils than they do the word of God, they shall, he, the Pope, corrupt by flatteries. That is, led them on in their partisan zeal. This is a fanaticism for himself by the bestowment of wealth, position, and honors. If you go and kill those Waldensians, we will give you lands, we'll give you their lands, we'll give you their women, whatever. Verse 33, and they that understand among the people, these are the saints, shall instruct many. They're going to go out. They're going to be missionaries. Think of the Waldensians, these missionaries from the Alps. And they shall fall by the sword. They're going to be persecuted, and by the flame, and by captivity. They're being scattered. They're still in the scattering time. And by spoil, many days. For how long? For a times and a half, or the 1260 days, if you're familiar with that. They're going to fall by the sword until the end of the 1260 period, or for a times and a half. Christ swore by that. Now, when they shall fall, they shall be holpen with a little help, but many shall cleave to them with flatteries. So this could be two things. This is the Mayflower. The earth helped the woman. The Protestants escaped to the New World. So this is the little bit of help that they were given. Or it could be speaking of the Reformation. Now, when they shall fall, they shall be holpen with a little help. Their Protestant nations started to spring up in Europe. So you had Catholic territories, you had Protestant territories. So there was some kings, some magistrates helped the Protestants. Verse 35, here it is. We have traced it all the way down now. Our final verse of the day. And some of them of understanding shall fall, to try them, and to purge and make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is yet for a time appointed. So we know that when this is at the end of days, this is at the end of captivity, this is when the captivity is over. General Berthier walks into Rome unopposed. The beast suffers its deadly wound. And now the Pope can no longer keep the Bible out of the hands of the people. The Pope can no longer persecute the people. They can study Daniel and the Revelation. The signs of the times are fulfilling immediately after the tribulation of these days. And the Lord is opening the little book up. Many are running to and fro, and knowledge is increasing. And the Advent message is born. The Adventist people are born. The scattering of God's people are over. God enters into covenant with a people. And the Seventh-day Adventist Church is come. The bride of Christ is being gathered together. On this side of 1844, 12,000 out of each tribe are being gathered. We might not know exactly what tribe we're in or what number we are in that number, but that's where we are in history. We are the Israel of God. We are the people of the book. We are the remnant, and God. We are no longer in the scattering time. We are now in the gathering time, and all the ancient prophecies dealing with how long are we going to be persecuted for? How long? Until the end of these wonders. When are you going to come back and gather your people? We're in that time. We've been privileged. The Advent people have been privileged to live in America, where there's a constitution and religious freedom. And now we see that being taken away. The image of the beast is forming before our eyes. And God is going to destroy the kingdoms of this earth and take us home. So we are in that gathering time, and we're going to end it there. We're going to end with a word of prayer.